Good afternoon, students. Welcome to our next session. Today we will be discussing some few very important topics. So we have seen in the last class the two algorithms, right? The breadth first search and the depth first search, and also we have seen their advantages and disadvantages and how the algorithm is going to work, and we have seen what is the components of a production systems, right? Of course, that we have already discussed what is the different types of the production system based on the initial state and the goal state. Either you can go, or you can have a forward chaining, or you can have a, or what we can say, forward production system, or you can have a backwards production system, that is from goal state to the initial state. So in today's session, so we will be discussing about the classifications of our production system. That is what we have already seen. So in today's session, so we'll be discussing more about the characteristics of our production system, right? So now, if these are the characteristics today which we are going to discuss in today's session, and the problem characteristics also. Now, what do you mean by a production system? Already you know that it plays a very important role. So if you want to tell that we have a good production system, see, always the searching depends upon how good is your production system. Whenever you are applying a searching method, like say for example, you are going from your home to a unknown place, your friend's home you want to search, right? So your friend's home, which is an unknown place in an unknown city, now how good you are applying your logic, right? It depends on your how fast you are reaching, your how fast you are able to locate your friend in an unknown location. So your production system, that is your control strategies, all these things has to be very good. Now when you are talking about this production system characteristics, the production system is a good way to describe the operations that can be performed in our search, right? That's what we have seen. Now, can our production system, like problems, can we describe it by some set of characteristics? Can we describe this production system as certain characteristics such that it will be easy for us to understand that okay, you have built a very good production system? So if you can have some characteristics, if you can list down certain characteristics for our production system. Now, does there exist any relationship between the problem types, what all the various problem types, and our production system, which problem suits which type of production system? Can we do with that? That is the two questions which we are going to address in today's session, right? So to address the first type of the question, that is, can we list some characteristic? Yes, we can define some characteristics for our production system. That's what we call it as the classification of a production system. Now when you try to classify this production system, the first type of production system we can say is called as a monotonic production system, right? A monotonic production system. Now what does this monotonic production system has? Or like say, when you are going to build one production system, if you want to tell that okay, this I have built a production system which is monotonic in nature. So depending upon when you apply this type of a production system to some problems. Now what does this monotonic says? Now here it says the application of a rule never prevents the later application of another rule. What does it says? Application of a rule never prevents the application of a rule later, prevents the later application of another rule that could also been applied at the time the first rule was selected. That means in a very simple manner. Now in this type of a system, it does not prevent in applying the rules anytime you want. Like say for example, now you see here, say now you have got some rules are there, right? So let me call the rules as A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4. You have some rules you have defined here. Now right now you are at one state called as X, some state in your problem domain. So you have got a problem domain in your problem space, state space, right? You are at one state called as X. Now at this state X, to go to a next state, because you have not reached the goal right now, you need to apply the rules, right? Okay, so now you apply one rule. So now let us say that you apply rule A. So you are going to apply rule A. When you apply rule A to X, now you know that there is certain changes in your state and you reach to some other state, let us say Y. Now at this state Y, now what does this monotonic say? That you can apply rule B also. You can apply another rule B from Y and you can go to some other state Z. At that Z again you can apply rule A also. It does not prevent, see what it says, the application of a rule never prevents the later application of another rule. It does not prevent that any rule you can apply in such a type of a production system. We call it as a monotonic production system. And what is the second type of production system? It's called as non-monotonic production system. Non-monotonic means the application of a rule will prevent the later application of another rule. It will prevent us. That means you are building a production system where you say that once you apply rule A, right, in non-monotonic, once you go to a state Y, later part in your process of getting the solution or the goal state, once you apply this rule, again you cannot apply rule A. Rule A is removed. You cannot apply. It prevents. Right? That is how you are building your production system. Correct? Which we call non-monotonic. What is this? An application of a rule will prevent the later application of another rule. You cannot apply another rule if you apply this rule here. This is what it says. This is how it has been designed, right? That is why we are calling it as a non-monotonic production system. And the third type of a production system or characteristics we can list down is called as a partially commutative production system. Now, what does this partially commutative says? If the application of a particular sequence of rule transforms the state X into state Y. Suppose say that you have got a state X. Now you apply some rule A, B, C or 1, 2, 3. Now once you are applying this rule, it transfers it into another state Y. You go into another state Y. Then any permutation of those rules is allowable. Right? Now to go from X to Y, you have applied the rule A, B, C. It doesn't mean that you should apply first A, then B, then C only. If you can apply permutations of this rule, like say if you might be applying rule C, then rule B, then rule A, then also if there is a change from X to Y, this is also allowed for you. So that is what a partially commutative production system says. So you can mix up, you can have permutation of these set of rules such that it transforms from one state to another state. So we call it as a partially commutative. And the fourth category is called as a commutative production system. Commutative production system means it is a production system that is both monotonic and partially commutative. That is, monotonic means any rule you can apply. There is no hard and fast rule that once you apply a rule, later part you cannot apply that rule. That becomes non-monotonic. But if it is monotonic and partially commutative, permutations of these rules is allowed. Such a type of a production system, we call it as a commutative production system. Right? So now what all the things we have discussed. Now we have seen 4 types of production system. So we have seen 4 type of production system. We can say it is a classification or it can be different types of production system. So you just look into the questions how it has been asked in the examination. So what is that? Monotonic production system, which says that any rule can be applied anytime. Non-monotonic production system, wherein which it says that once you apply one rule, later on you cannot apply that rule, right? Non-monotonic. Third one is partially commutative monotonic system, right? Partially commutative. And the fourth one is commutative production system. So now these are the 4 production system what we have just now discussed. Now the next question is, can we relate some of the problems to this production system? So once you classify this production system, is a way in which you can group, okay, this type of problem comes in this type of production system. But if you observe carefully, to solve any particular problem, there is no rule that only one production system should be applied. There might be a chances that you have to mix up all these type of production systems in order to solve a complicated problem. But anyhow, we will try to see, can we group it into some of the problems. Like say when you are talking about these four types: monotonic, non-monotonic, partially commutative, and not partially commutative. So if you are going to consider partially commutative and monotonic, see, these are the some of the examples. One example here which is given is theorem proving. Like partially commutative and monotonic production system, we can group some of the examples like theorem proving, because you know that when you are proving a theorem, you start with one lemma or one sub theorem, right? So then you try to prove that theorem. Once you reach to a point where you come to know that further you cannot prove that theorem, so then whatever the assumptions or lemma you have considered, so you can ignore that, and you can consider another new thing. So new rule can be applied. So some ignorable problems or theorem proving problems, so that involves creating new things rather than changing old, right? The problems which are ignorable, you can go with this type. You can group it under monotonic and partially commutative. So theorem proving is one of the example of such type of classification we can make. Right now, another thing is that now non-monotonic and partially commutative production system, so which are non-monotonic and partially commutative. So like partially commutative means what? Permutation of rules is allowed. Non-monotonic means once you apply, again you cannot apply. Now these are helpful for problems in which changes occurs but can be reversed, and in which order of operation is not critical, right? Because there is a partially commutative, now you can say that mutually you can change any rule, right? So this can be usually applied to, like say, robot navigation in a flat plane, or the 8 puzzle problem, or the block word problems. Now in these type of the problems, you can see these type of characteristics of production system you can find. And third, production system that are not partially commutative, which are not partially commutative. Now it can be applied to a production system where, like say, chemical synthesis, right? So once you are doing some experiments, you add certain catalyst to that particular chemicals, and the chemicals are being changed. Again you cannot add it because already it has been changed, you cannot add, right? So this type of problems we can try to find. So we see that generally non partially commutative production system less likely to produce the same nodes many times in the searching process. That means generally the non partially commutative production system does not create more number of nodes when we go into our searching process. So it's just we can try to list it. Okay, so overall now you can see that the four type of classification of production system what we have done, that is monotonic, non-monotonic, partially commutative, or the commutative, the fourth type of production system, we can try to somehow try to group some of the problems under this particular category. But overall, if your problem is too complicated, so we cannot build a complete production system which is either monotonic or non-monotonic. It will be combination of all type of things has to be allowed, so that you try to solve any complicated problem, right? Now these are the some important things now what we have tried to see just now. So next we are going for another important thing, the problem characteristics. Now what is a problem characteristics? Now when we are going to solve a problem in artificial intelligence, there are certain characteristics of the problem, right? Before you try to solve the problem, you are going to see, okay, so whether this characteristics applies, can you apply, whether what are the characteristics. So now we are going to a very important, again it's a very important thing with respect to the examination, also a very important question which you are going to find, which is called as the problem characteristics. Let me try to understand this. So in order to choose the most appropriate method, before you are going to select an appropriate method for solving a particular problem, now there are certain key characteristics which you have to identify. So what are these characteristics? So 7 to 8 characteristics we are having. The first one is the is the problem decomposable? The second one, can the solution steps be ignored or undone? Can we ignore it or undone? The third one is the universe predictable? The next one, is the solution absolute or relative? Next, is the solution state or a path? What is the role or the level of knowledge what we are using? Now, does there requires any human interaction? So now these are the problem, the characteristics. So this is not the problem characteristic. So now these are the various characteristics of our problem. So now let us try to understand and discuss one by one in detail. The first one is very simple, is the problem decomposable? So now whenever you are going to solve a problem, try to see that can you divide the problem into small pieces, because we know that solving a very big problem is very complicated for us. So we try to see can it be decomposable. So because decomposable problem can easily be solved, right? So this is a simple example like an integration problem which has been taken. You can clearly see that. So solving this big integration is very difficult, so we divide it into parts. So when you divide it into parts, when the problem can be decomposable, then easily you can try to solve the problem. So that is the first characteristics. Can you decompose the problem? The second characteristic is, can solution steps be ignored or undone? Can you ignore? Right, there are certain problem wherein which you can ignore or you can go back, right? Now these type, like say for example, when you are going for theorem proving in mathematics, you can ignore some of the steps. So you can or go back, you can do whatever you want when you are solving a problem. Like say we proceed by first proving a lemma, then we think that it will be useful. First time when you think that okay, this will be useful, you make some assumptions, you take some lemma and you start proving it. Once you have gone to some number of steps, then you find that it is not useful for that. So then you can ignore that. You can realize that lemma is not useful for you, so you can ignore it. So when you are talking about these, can the solution steps be ignored or undone? Based on that, we can say three different illustrations we can have. So what are based on our problems? Like say ignorable problem, recoverable problem, and irrecoverable problem, right? So like say theorem proving, we can call it as ignorable problem. You know it, why it is ignorable. Recoverable means where the steps can be undone. You can go back, right? So now you see that there are certain examples like say 8 puzzle problem. You know, we have solved the 8 puzzle problem, wherein which one step, one tile you have moved from one place to another place. If you find that you are not going to get the solution, you can go back. Now when you're talking about chess, once you make a move, you cannot go back in chess, right? So chess becomes irrecoverable, whereas 8 puzzle, it becomes recoverable problem. So we have, can our solution steps be, can it be ignored or undone? So now you have to understand, that is another characteristic. So irrecoverable problem can be solved when your problem is irrecoverable. So when like say chess, where you cannot recover, ignorable problem like say 8 puzzle and theorem proving, when you don't know that you can ignore some of the lemma, you can go back in that time. So you have to build your control strategy in that particular fashion, right? So when you are talking about irrecoverable problem like say chess, now you have to think your strategies. Now how exactly you are going to build your strategies when it is an ignorable problem and when it is not an ignorable problem. So your strategies, because you want to build the strategies in that particular fashion. So to that only we are trying to look into various problem characteristics. So the third important characteristics we will see now, right? So we will see these things. So when you are having these classifications of problem, so your strategies also minds a lot. So when it is ignorable problem, you can solve by using simple control strategies which never backtracks, because you need not have any backtrack. You can just simply ignore it, no need of going backtrack. When you want to undo the problem, so you need a backtrack. Now at that time you should put the backtracking concept in your control strategy. Now if it is irrecoverable problem like such as, no need of any backtracking, because once you make a move, that is the final. Now you cannot go back. So once you make a move, then opponent is going to straight away make a move, whether it is correct or wrong. So this is the next one. And the third one is the universe predictable? So what does it says? Is the universe predictable means, can you predict what will happen? Like say that if you are playing a tic-tac-toe game. Now say at some point of time, now this is the board configuration is there, right? Now the O turns is there. Now O can predict what is going to happen, or like say for example, right? So now O turns is there. Now O can predict what will happen next. Now if O is going to place here, he is going to win the game, right? So he will place obviously here. That is what we say is the universe predictable. Now the outcomes, now there are certain outcomes every time we make a move. If I make a move, there will be some outcomes here. If I don't make a move, or say for example, you can come to know that if I am not going to make a move right now, my opponent is going to win. In that case, I will block that. That means I can predict what is going to happen. Now there are certain outcomes every time we make a move, and we know what is going to happen next. That is what this says. Is your problem what you are going to solve, does it have a characteristics where you can predict what will happen next? Now say it is possible to plan. If you are able to predict, you can plan the sequence of move, right? If you know what is going to happen, you can plan it. So all the sequence of move. Suppose if it is not predictable, like say if you are taking about some bridge games, some card games, you don't know, you cannot predict what will happen next. You don't know what cards the opponent is going to happen or have that. Without that, you don't know what cards he is having. But whatever the move you are going to make, you predict, right? So now you are going to associate some probability. So you try to come to a conclusion that by making this move, the probability of you winning the game is this much. With that hope, you make this move, but later on you don't know what is going to happen, right? But at this moment of time, you are thinking that, so because you are not able to predict what will happen next, so you think that this, by making this particular move, the chances of me winning is more. With that, you are going to make a move. Or say for example, controlling a robot arm. See, the outcome is uncertain. We don't know when the robot is moving in a flat surface. We don't know what happens, who is going to come in front of this, because the robot cannot predict. Or like say a lawyer, so when he's going, a lawyer decides how to defend his client against a murder charges. Now here we can probability, we cannot even list all the possible outcomes. Even though if you make a list, or this is what might happen in future, in between the case may go in such a way that in between some new evidence will come. Because of this new evidence, there might be completely change of your case. So lot of uncertainty is there, right? So for certain outcomes problems, so when you know that the outcome you are going to predict, when you know that this is what is going to happen, then planning can be used to generate a sequence of operator. Then you can plan properly what all the sequence you can have, because you know what is going to happen, right? If the outcome is uncertain, for uncertain outcome problems, you see here a sequence, then also you have to plan, because you are in the game, you have to make a move, right? But the sequence of generated operators can only have a good probability of leading to a solution. So you plan your sequence saying that the probability is very good of you winning the game, but still it is an uncertain, right? So planning revision is made as the plan is carried out and the necessary feedback is required. When you are unable to predict what is going to happen, then you have to revise your plan based on how you are going to move in your particular game. So this is the next important characteristic, whether you can predict the solution or not. The next important thing is a solution absolute or a relative, right? To be very easily, if you want to understand the difference between absolute and relative, like say for example, now if you add two numbers, the solution is absolute, right? Now if you are going to find the pi value, so 22 by 7, so when you take a pi value, what is the answer? So you are going to round off, because the answer after decimal point it keeps on going, you round off to 2 or 3 decimal place, you say relative. Similarly here also, now let us see what do you mean here by absolute or a relative path. Now say for example, now you have a database, you have certain sentences are there. Now what are these? Like say Marcus was a man, right? So you have another knowledge with you. Marcus was Pompeian. Marcus was born in 40 AD. All men are mortal. All Pompeians died when volcano erupted in year 79 AD. No mortal lives longer than 150 years. It is now 100 1991 AD. Now our question is Marcus alive? You have to find the answer to this question, right? So now how do you find the answer to this question? So you have to read it. So you try to do certain logic, you try to analyze these sentences, and you try to give the solution to this particular question. Now if you observe here carefully here, now we know that, like say Marcus was born, when he was born, that is the date of birth you are taking. And there is another sentence says that, so no mortal lives longer than 150 years. No mortal, and you know that all men are mortal, so obviously Marcus is also mortal, and no mortal lives longer than 150 years. Now you take this one, Marcus was born in 40 AD, and right now time is 1991 AD. Now if you subtract these two, now the difference is greater than 150 years, and with this statement you can conclude that Marcus is dead, he is not alive. So much of things our brain is working in order to prove that whether it is alive or dead. So now let us see here. Now here this is one way of representing the knowledge. So don't worry about this. What is this axiom 1, axiom 4, 1 comma 4? These are the rules or justification. Right now you don't worry about all these things. We will be discussing that in our next module. So here what we are doing, now we are using some language, or we are using certain method, predicate logic, right? So we use that particular knowledge representation, and we represent all the facts, and we try to prove that particular facts by applying certain logic here, right? Certain resolution, there are certain knowledge representation scheme, as I told, we will be discussing later on. But right now you just try to understand here is that by considering here so many facts, now we have proved that Marcus is dead. This last one is our proof. We are proving that Marcus is dead. So we took Marcus was a man, all men are mortal, then Marcus is a mortal. Like this we keep on applying one rules, and we try to come to a conclusion. Now to come to a conclusion here, now we might have taken long steps, like so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 to 8 steps we have taken. We have done lot of justification in order to get to this solution. Now this is not only the one solution, so we may be having another solution also. So here we came to conclusion very fast, right? So since here we are only interested in this answer, whether Marcus is dead or not, we are interested only in answer, so we don't want the path, right? So now we can say absolute, right? We just want the answer, absolute. Okay, so no matter which path you are going to follow. But relative means what happens now, in that path which is the best one, right? Now if we do follow one path successfully to get an answer, then there is no reason to go back and see whether another path also leads to a solution. Now this type of problem we call any path problem, because we need the solution, that's all. We are not interested in which path you are going to follow. So we say that the path is an absolute. Now relative means, like say you consider the travel salesman problem. This is the well-known problem, already we have discussed in your previous semesters or in your undergraduates. Now if you are going to consider a travel salesman problem where all the cities, and from each city to another city the distance is been given, now eventually you try to get a solution. Now you can see there are two solutions here. This is one path which gives you the solution, this is another path, both are the answers are the correct. But since it is a travel salesman problem, in travel salesman problem, not only the solution, what we want the best solution. Now out of these solution, which one is the best? The solution which is giving you the lesser distance, shortest path. So this is our best solution, right? That is our best solution. So relative, right? So these are the another important characteristic. The shortest path or the best path is the exact solution for us, not just the solution, because both paths are giving to solve the travel salesman. But in that, so just like saying in your previous semesters you might have studied feasible solution and an optimal solution. When you are going to solve the travel salesman problem, you have got a feasible solution. Both these two or three or different path will be there, all are feasible, but out of this which one is optimal, which one is the best, that you are going to select, right? That is another important characteristics. The next one is the solution state or a path. So this is very simple. Now whether the solution to your problem, is it a state or is it a path? Like say for example, now when you are going to consider the missionary and cannibal problem, so now the solution to that is a path. How, what is this path we are going to follow so that you are going to get this solution? Now the state means you are just interested in that particular state. So like say water jug problem, you just want 2 liter water, only I need the state, right? So sometimes state is important, sometimes path is important. So even sorry for example, water jug problem also, it is a path, because you have to give the solution how you are getting the 2 liter. Simply if you tell that I started with 0,0 and I just got 2 liters in 4 liter jug, means how, what is that path is very important, right? Now but there are certain problems wherein which the state is very important for us. Like say for example, if you take the if you interpretation of any English sentences, now here the state is very important, not the path here. Because take the example, the bank president ate a dish of pasta salad with a fork. Now when you are going to interpret here, if you take this word bank, now it has so many meaning here. The bank can be a bank, a financial institution, or one side of a river. When you come to know what is this, only when by reading it with the next word. Here when you say president means a river side cannot have a president. When you are saying a president, then you will come to know that yes, it is a financial institution, right? So in this example, now the state becomes very important for us. So like even the bank, or if you take the word dish, now the word dish is the object of the word eat. It is possible that the dish was eaten, right? So the dish was eaten, or you are going to eat. So lot of complications comes even when you are talking about the pasta salad also. So it is more likely that the pasta salad is in the dish was eaten, right? So now we see that to solve the problem of finding this interpretation, we need to properly look into the state. So which is that state? Context, or we can say that when we are talking properly about the grammar or the English, we say the context in which the word is being obtained, because that context will give you the meaning. Otherwise the same word will give you 2 or 3 meaning for us, but the context in which the state is important, right? So this, when you are talking about water jet problem, the path is important for us, right? The path is becomes very important. So so water jet problem is a path to a state. So if we have the goal state, but how you are reaching that goal state, you have to give the path for us. So we have to understand whether the state is a goal state, that is the what is the characteristic is telling us, is the solution a state or a path. Try to understand this before you are going to solve your problem, because once you understand all these characteristics, then only you can build the production system properly by using the knowledge. So the next characteristics of a problem is, what is the role of the knowledge, what is the level of the knowledge. This is very easy, you can understand to what level of knowledge is required in order to solve the problem. If you are solving very simple problem, low level of knowledge is required, right? So if you are solving very complicated problems, so more knowledge is required for us. So the level of knowledge or the role of knowledge, So is that knowledge really required for us to solve the problem? Like say when you're talking about a water jet problem, that much of role of knowledge is not required for us, because we just give some rules, and if you apply that rules in a systematic manner, you are going to get the solution, right? Either the solution may be fast or it might take a little bit more time. But like say when you are going for scanning a daily newspaper and you want to answer certain question, like how we told whether Marcus is dead or alive, so to answer such a type of a questions, now we need lot of knowledge. The role of knowledge becomes very important for us, right? Then now the last one is, does we need an interaction with the person? That means, do we need any interaction once you start your problem? Do we need any interaction with our person? So is a human interaction required to solve the problem? If yes, then you give the interaction, otherwise you need not give any interaction. Like say for solving any chess problem, so when you are going to solve a chess problem with your computer, you make a move. Next, what system is going to make a move? But for the system to make a move, does it needs any human interaction? It is not required, right? So like that, suppose that you are trying to prove some new very difficult theorem proving example. Now we might demand a proof that follows the traditional pattern, so that the mathematician can read that and they can check whether it is correct or wrong. Again, human interaction is needed, right? So you give one, you have one program, and to give one theorem, and this AI problem will give the solution to that particular theorem. Later on, now this theorem, the proof what was given by the system, can be taken by a mathematician. He can interact with, the interaction is required to check whether it is correct and is there any modification has to be done, right? So we need, depending upon our problem, now you have to understand that what level of knowledge is required for us. Now these are the very important problem solving, or we can say the various characteristics of our problem. Like say solitaire problem, so in solitaire problem there is no intermediate communication. We don't need any interaction with the system, right? So system will start playing on its own. So it depends upon what type of a problem you are having. Now how much is interaction is required? If interaction is required, in that way you are supposed to analyze the problem. Now let us take a case study of all these problem characteristics. Now we will take an example of a tower of Hanoi, and we'll look into the what are the characteristics with respect to this particular tower of Hanoi problem, right? You know, this is the solution to our problem. This is right. Now how we are going to solve? So we have 3 disks here. You, what you do in the next step, you keep blue here, right? So in the next step you keep green here. In the next step, now what you are going to do, you keep blue on this. Like this you try to solve this particular problem. This is a tower of Hanoi, very standard problem, you know. Now we will try to understand with respect to our characteristics of our problem. What is our first characteristic? Is the problem decomposable? Now can you divide this problem, right? Now say for example, now you want to solve the tower of Hanoi. Can you divide it into 3 parts and you give 2 parts to your friends and tell, okay, you solve this part, you solve this part? Can you do it? You cannot do it, because this is one problem. It is only one problem. You cannot decompose the problem, right? So what it says, no. Is the problem decomposable? No, you cannot divide this problem, because single solution, you cannot divide it. The second characteristic, can the solution steps be ignored and undone? Yes, right? You can ignore some. See, you kept it here, then you find that you are not able to get the solution, then you can again keep it back. You can keep this blue tile back here. There is no rule which says that once you keep it here you cannot keep. You can ignore that particular rule. So solution steps can be ignored and you can, or undone, that means you can go back. The third characteristics, is it predictable? Yes, right? You can predict what will be the solution, what is the next step it can have. Now is the solution absolute or a relative? So the solution is absolute, right? Absolute, only one solution. Once you get the solution, enough, you got the solution, that's all. Now no matter that whether you got the solution in 4 step or 5 step, it doesn't mind for me, right? Once I get a solution, it is okay. So it is absolute. The fifth characteristics is the desired solution, a state of the world or a path to a state. Is it a state of the world or path to a state? So what is the solution we are going to get? It is a path. So we want that path, how we are going to get the solution. Especially for natural language processing, it will be state of the word. That means the context in which the English, the interpretation, right, that becomes, because the sentences are very ambiguity will be there on each word. At that time it becomes state of word, whereas for this problem it is a path. So that is the answer. Now what is the role of knowledge? So it needs knowledge. Here knowledge is required, right? So because, so if you don't have that knowledge, then it is very difficult to solve this particular problem. Clear? So the next one, does the task requires interaction with a human? So do we need any interaction? We don't need. Once you write a program, it keeps on doing it, right? So it do no need of any human interaction. Once you give the knowledge and all the rules, now it will try to solve it in that by applying the rules properly. Now these are the problem characteristics. These are the 7 very important problem characteristics, now which you have to understand when you are going to solve any particular problem. So once you know the characteristics of a problem, so then it becomes easy for us to build our production system. So this is a very important concept, or the question also in your examination, explain the problem characteristics. Now all these 7 problem characteristics you have to explain. So you take each problem characteristics and give certain examples, and you can try to explain all the problem characteristics. So these are the things which we have discussed in today's class, right? So very important concept we have discussed in today's session. So in the tomorrow's session, now we will be starting with the another type of searching process. So we have seen uninformed search. Now we will go for informed search. That means little bit of heuristic search we will be trying to discuss. Now what is that heuristic search? What are the different types? So those things we will be trying to cover in our next class. Okay. So I think the concepts are very clear. So if you have got any doubts, so you can freely call me, or you can drop in the comments in the Google Classroom, or in our live session in the tomorrow's class. If you have got any doubt, now you can even raise that particular doubt, so that we can clarify all those things. Clear? So have a nice day. Be safe. Thank you for watching this session. Bye bye.